This is the most exciting video about short-term missions trips that I could even think of sharing because I believe in them, but there's a way to do them better that I believe is going to be a game changer. I believe the results are just going to be outstanding because of the impact that it has on the people we go to serve and the impact it has on the people that we send and what they experience and learn as they go. So I want you to check into this with me. I'd love to hear from you in the comments of what you believe could be done differently to improve short-term missions trips that go every single year. Here we go. Okay, first, this is a bit candid, but if you're just trying to do a trip to give people a discipleship experience and they're not mature believers, send your young people on a backpacking trip where they get to learn team building, they get to be challenged, they get to be pushed outside their comfort zones, they get to have Bible teachers. Like, give them an experience like that. And then if you want them to get a different perspective around worldview, like there are places in the country that have very different culture to them that they could go to get a taste of even the Arab world, or send them to the wrong side of Baltimore where it's high risk if you're just trying to give them a wake-up call. Do something that's created, that is intentional, for these people's discipleship where they learn what they need to and have the experience they need to grow. And I'm speaking firsthand, like I did a discipleship training school. I gained so much out of it, but I also am very aware at the expense of others that happened from it. Next, bring missions literacy back to the church on Sunday mornings. Here's what I mean is make sure your church is not just aware of need, because there's need everywhere and need is not the call. Make sure your church is aware of where we are at in the state of missions. Most people don't realize that only 3% of missionaries go to the 40% of the world that has limited to no access to Jesus. Begin to make sure your church understands who your missionary partners are, what missionaries really do, honoring and caring for and supporting missionaries and praying for the gospel to go to those who have not heard it. Like, make sure missions literacy on this level is a part of your church culture. Then consider better criteria and guidelines on who should go and what they should do if they go on the field. Like, what are they going there to do? What I mean by that is if the playing field were reversed, the person that you're sending there, would you be okay if they sent that same person to you and your church to speak to your church and to serve your church? It's kind of common sense, but this one's been overlooked a lot. Next, have stronger partnerships with missionaries who actually do frontier, pioneer, disciple making, and church planting, ideally within unreached people groups. Statistically speaking, you are only going to be invited majority of the time to parts of the world where there's not this huge, great need for people to be bringing the gospel. And so you're going to have to do the work of swimming against the current in order to bring your church into experiences and exposure and missions with unreached people groups and with there is this great need for missionary work. And so you need to find missionaries doing this type of church planting and disciple making movement work with unreached people groups so that you can then have partnerships and opportunities to be taking those teams to them to learn what it is they're doing. Consider within your church with the semantics and words, the way that you define things. Is it a mission trip? Is it a discipleship? Is it a discovery trip? But make sure people really know, like, what is it? And make sure that we're, honest with our words of what we expect the outcomes to be, because this paints the culture and expectations and perception around missions trips. Okay, here's another really big idea. Send smaller teams to your partnering missionaries to do life with them and learn about what missions is with them. You don't go to accomplish anything other than to learn and encourage and serve your partner missionaries who are the ones who are doing the work of missions. They're learning the language, they're learning the culture, they're enduring suffering for the sake of the gospel to be there. You're learning from the local believers about their own culture and the nuances, about their persecution, about their plight, about their challenges. You're using this trip to help your team appreciate missions better by and making it a real discipleship investment and also missions discovery investment in their lives, and allows them now to know what it is and if this is the right step that maybe God is calling them into. All right, next, go to learn, not to do. This is going to be so counterculture to short-term missions, but I think it is one huge golden nuggets. Hear me out. Ask a ton of questions and soak up all of the perspective. serve the long-term missionaries who are there in the field. They're going to be there long after you leave, so that's way more valuable than you having one big event and blow up to be a part of what's going to last, Lord willing, for generations by what they build and leave behind to the locals. Make sure your trip as you go results in people going long term. This should be a goal, that more missionaries are now supported because of this trip. People go and they get a heart to support missionary work. And then there's more prayer now for missions and missionaries as a result of that trip. All right, here's another pro tip for better short-term missions trips. Do better debriefing. First off, make sure y'all have already practiced debriefing before you even go on the trip. Every single evening, you're going to be debriefing with your team about what happened, what they learned, and how this applies and what they're going to do with it next, right? And you can even debrief, like sometimes there's going to be an event that happened that day that just like people are in shock by. Well, yeah, an hour later when you get back to base, you're going to be talking about that and exploring that. And again, you're going not to just do, but to learn. And in this case, we're talking about asking great questions and allowing deep discussion and allowing the Holy Spirit to reveal new things that we're learning on this trip. And then, of course, amazing debriefing upon the return, immediately and then even a little while after the return, because so much was seen, witnessed, and God is going to do through that. We want to mine all the gold that we can from this experience. All right, quick thought. If you're going to do debriefing and you're going to do it really well, you as the leader or whoever it is, make sure that you do not do all of the talking. You'll kill the debriefing and the value of it. All right, we're getting close to the end. Hang with me. Here are some resources that I need you to consider if you want to continue to see short-term missions trips even better. The resources that have helped so many others rethink short-term missions and how to do them in a healthier way. Here they are. The Missions Dilemma by Steve Saint. Listen, it's really dated, but man, it is gold. When Everything Hurts by Steve Corbett. Classic. You're going to read it. It's going to wreck your world when you think about missions from now on. You got to do it. When Everything is Missions by Denny Spitters. Check it out. It's kind of all the rage right now, and it's controversial. Finally, be sure that Joshua Project is now on your radar. Before you ever go to another country on a short-term missions trip, you should look at that country on Joshua Project and learn about it. And you should also compare it to other countries where there is little to no access to Jesus. All right, so let me just say, in the description, I have links to all these things. I have other resources. I will have steps if missions is something that God has put on your heart. I would love to hear questions that you have in the comments. You're welcome to push back and challenge me on my viewpoints that I've shared here about short-term missions trips. I welcome it. And then, of course, if you want to learn more about missions, please do subscribe. Let me just say that I don't have this topic all figured out. I've learned a lot from experience and from going and living with missionaries and doing life with them. And I still have so much to learn. And I want to invite you to not just take what I say, take it as a grain of salt. And maybe you'll find that I'm a little bit too extreme in my views. But again, go and speak to missionaries living out missionary life. Go and speak to the local leaders in these countries that are recipients. Particularly look for the ones who are unbiased, who don't have anything to gain from the handouts and the types of things that we do, because they're going to give you a really balanced perspective of what we do and how it's contributing or hurting even the gospel and the movement of Jesus in their own local areas. Again, I want to say it again, I still support people to go on short-term missions trips. I'm a huge fan of short-term missions trips, especially if they're done the way that I shared in this video. But I'm advocating, and I would invite you to advocate with me in a heart posture of wanting to solve the problem, not point it out, and a humility for better short-term missions trips, because I think it's absolutely worthwhile. Now, let me leave you with this. Check out this next video to learn a little bit more about the state of missions.